Good afternoon, councillors, officers, members of the public. Welcome along. I declare this meeting open. Just want to acknowledge we have members of the Access Committee here tonight. Welcome along to all of you. Thank you for the work you do. Under announcements, very pleased to advise, and many would be aware, that the Parks and Leisure WA have an award, annual award, and the Kambana Park was awarded Park of the Year for Western Australia, and this very handsome award is here. So congratulations again to everybody involved in that park. We had Christy and Phil from the city go and collect that award on our behalf recently, and they'll be going through to the October Awards in Melbourne to contest the national awards. So great outcome. Well done, everybody. Councillor Warnock is an apology for tonight. Are there any declarations of interest, councillors? Confirmation of the previous minutes meeting. Can I have someone move those minutes, please? Thank Councillor Cook, Councillor Hayward. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have the Advisory Committee 7.12. There are two there. Can I have someone move that we receive those? Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Miguel. All in favour? Councillor McCleary moves, Councillor McGuell seconds. Speaker against.
Well, Mr. Mayor, first I'd like you to separate 1 and 2. I wish to support 1 but speak against 2.
I'll move 1. All in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. And point 2, Councillor Kelly, what's your issue with the minutes?
Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. I think the mover would need to have a point to speak to them first.
I think the mover may want to know what the issue is. We're dealing with the recommendation is accept and note the minutes, and we've got the details of those matters coming forward.
Yep.
So what's
Mayor,
your issue?
I shall speak against them, and ultimately I believe that we need to get some policy around this at some stage. But as everybody knows, the positioning of the Bunbury Geograph Chamber of Commerce and Industry on that committee was contentious. It went 7-6, but it did have some contention about it, and that's because the BGCCI is a business lobby group, and by definition their representative on the city's policy committee, their CEO, sits on the committee as a paid lobbyist.
Councillor Kelly, the issue we're dealing with accepting and noting the minutes, so please confine your debate to those 2 items.
I will do so, Mr. Mayor, but the background's important because the councillors may wish to understand why I'm voting against them. Okay, Mr. Mayor, what I'll do is then I'll go straight to the crux of the matter. In the case of BGCCI, their position as a paid business lobbyist on this particular committee, where there is confidential council information, brings a risk with it. That risk is that I asked, previously queried, whether or not the representative, as an outside member of the policy committee, had signed the city's code of conduct. And the code of conduct, as we all know, along with the associated statement of business ethics, is provided to prevent misconduct, corruption and fraud. On the 2nd of May 2018, Mr Osborne, our CEO, formally advised that the BGCCI had not signed the Code of Conduct, and as such their representative is not bound by way of any recourse for breaches that occur of the Code. And that is a direct quote from Mr Osborne. There's one example. I will say that at no time in the 2 meetings that have been held to date has the BGCCI representative flagged a potential conflict of interest, financial proximity, impartial or trivial. And I can see at least one example of when this should have occurred. Not that for us to make a judgment on another councillor declaring an interest, but in this case, no code of conduct being signed. And that was the proposed new council policy, footpath contributions for development. Obviously, if the BGCCI is representing developers, then the representative that is a paid lobbyist for that group would need to have declared at least an interest in either impartiality or otherwise proximity.
Councillor Kelly, I'm sorry, I can't see where you're going with this. Can you just conclude your debate and then I'll put it to the vote?
Okay, given that the BGCCI representative has not signed the Code of Conduct and we don't even know if they've read it, I can't be assured that the risk to the city is being managed by that person receiving confidential information and either sitting on it, distributing it or otherwise. So I can't support the minutes until such time that's sorted out, Mr Mayor, and the suggestion will be that, ironically, it'll be the policy committee that comes up with some sort of policy to ensure that paid lobbyists on any of our committees are aware of their responsibilities and actually obliged to guard the information they receive in their positions. So until that happens, I won't be supporting those minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor McCleary, do you wish to...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is, Councillor Kelly has brought up a valid point and it is very perplexing, but I need to go back and have a look what exactly we're doing. And
just
point of order, Councillor Hayward.
You didn't ask for a speaker for the proposed motion. I just wondered whether that was going to be...
No, I've allowed some flexibility here.
I am just wrapping up.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just wrapping up. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. And we are just doing the minutes and report being accepted.
That's
so
right.
I'll accept those minutes. Whether I agree with the minutes or not is another argument, but I accept them. And I hope others will too. Thank you.
All in favour, please indicate. That's number 2. Those against? 2 against. Councillors Kelly and Steele against. The rest were 4, and that's carried. Are there any petitions? We have a request for a presentation tonight, a deputation from Mrs Johnson, Dvorak and Hewitt on item 10.18. Those who agree with that, please indicate. That's agreed to. So when we get to that item, I'll invite you up and you have 5 minutes to do your presentation. Method of dealing with the agenda, councillors, the only one that's coming out for discussion is that point of item 10.1.8. Are there any others that anyone wishes to discuss? Can I have a move for the bulk? Councillor Cook moves. Councillor Steele, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. So, Mr Johnson, Mr Dvorak and Dr Hewitt. Or Miss Hewitt. Welcome along.
Thank you.
Adam, would you care to introduce your colleagues and then you can start speaking.
His Worship the Mayor, councillors, executives and the supporters here today, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to tell you briefly about the Marcia Research Report before you for endorsement. And my co-researchers Paul and Catherine would also like to share their perspectives. The report is the culmination of 12 months of research looking into what is helping and hindering Bunbury in becoming the most accessible regional city in Australia. We spent time as a group exploring the issues in detail, and we found a common theme, that it needs to be done right in the design stage. That in the design stage, we can eliminate the disabling effects of impairment by designing for all. So we thought about who has responsibility for the design of Bunbury's buildings, facilities, services, and events. And we then met face-to-face with around 30 individuals working for council or in local businesses and in community groups who are involved in design or in approving design work. we asked them what could be done in their role to improve disability access and inclusion. We also looked at best practice elsewhere. From this information, we have developed 6 key recommendations as follows. We believe there's a need to further train staff and contractors for inclusive design. So inclusive design is design that is for all. It's universal design. It's design that involves people with disabilities in the process. We believe there's a need to increase technical support to staff and contractors for inclusive design to happen. We believe there's a need for improved benchmarks, checklists and accountability for inclusive design. We especially believe that design needs to involve people with disabilities as partners in design, which is called co-design. And we believe that there's a need to promote the sharing of best practice in inclusive design between local governments and other regions around Australia. And finally, there's a need to remove existing barriers resulting from traditional design practices. So I'd love to explain them in more detail, but you have the report in front of you. I would now like to invite Paul and Catherine to say a few words. Paul? I don't know how you...
That's all right, mate. I'll speak loud enough. I would like to thank the Mayor, Councillors and Council staff for this opportunity to speak in favour of Council endorsing the Master report. My name is Paul and I've been a member of the Master Research Committee for the past 18 months. I'd just like to say it is often not being in a wheelchair or having a disability that makes people feel disabled. It is often poor design that disables people by building in barriers instead of removing them, leading to a loss of independence and ultimately social isolation, because sometimes it's just easier to stay at home. My lived experience as a wheelchair user in Bunbury is that Australian standards fall short of the expectations of people with disabilities and what they want to achieve. As an example of designers meeting minimum Australian standards and not best practice, I would like to show a short video taken during a joint guided wheelchair tour undertaken by the Master Committee and Council staff. As you can see, even a fit, able-bodied person, the staff member, struggles to use the footpath safely. And although the driveway crossover meets minimum Australian standards, it represents a real safety hazard to elderly people and people with mobility aids. Finally, I would like to show an extract from the Department of Transport's pedestrian guidelines that gives an example of best practice. Department of Transport's guidelines call for a maximum 1 in 40 or 2.5% cross gradient, which is half that allowed under Australian standards. People of all abilities deserve equal access to their built environment, but to achieve this, the Council will need to move away from the mindset of meeting minimum Australian standards and strive to create a culture accepting nothing less than best practice. This is why I'm strongly in favour of endorsing the Master report. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Catherine Hewitt and I'd like to echo Paul and Adam's words of extending gratitude and thanks for this opportunity tonight. I'm representing the low vision and blind, and I just want to point out that you could have 10 people as lined up with low vision or blindness. We're all going to see differently. So don't put us in a box and assume that it's all the same. But my point I'd like to get across tonight is that I would like to see us being able to be involved at the consultation process for any design. It's no point after the design has been created or down the track. We need to be involved at that point. We have a lot to contribute. All disabilities, not just the low vision, but we're all very individual and it's very hard to incorporate everything. But if there's a meeting in the middle, then the city's going to really just strive ahead. And I also would just like to quickly add how exciting it is that we're at the forefront of this, and it's a ripple effect. We've got other local bodies looking to us now and getting on board. So thank you once again and wish to endorse this as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just quickly in conclusion, there's evidence everywhere that Bunbury is slowly but surely transforming into the most accessible regional city in Australia. It is happening mainly because of the leadership shown by the City of Bunbury and a willingness to work collaboratively with people with disabilities. This builds empathy and awareness in staff members responsible for design work, and we look forward to continuing this relationship and commend the report for your endorsement.
Thanks very much to all of you. Your work is greatly appreciated, highly valued, and let's see, I'm sure you'll get a strong endorsement from the City Council in about 30 seconds' time, so thank you very much for your presentation. Got someone prepared to move? Councillor Kelly, seconder. Councillor Cook.
I'd just like to make a few brief words, Mr Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
It's by way of saying that the journey to make the Bunbury the most accessible regional city in Australia, as was pointed out, began in 2014, and tonight is a significant milestone in that journey. Indeed, the promotion of access and inclusion is a constant journey, one where we all have the responsibility to make the best use of life and thought in the service of our fellows. The work of the Marcia Research Group, led by Adam Johnson, has attracted keen interest, as we were told, from other local government authorities, and it's been watched by many who have a stake in the field of disability access and inclusion. Now, the group was set up with members of lived experience, people with disabilities and their carers, and it's their collective voice that we hear in this particular report, which articulates clearly that the key to achieving an inclusive and accessible city is how we design our services, facilities and businesses, and how we include people of lived experience in that design process. So everyone has a role to play, but those who design and those who approve designs have a special responsibility to help create a city where no one is excluded because of disability. So the report steps out how council, businesses and community organisations in Bunbury can help remove barriers to access and inclusion, and importantly, prevent new barriers from occurring in the future. The important thing here is now I want to publicly acknowledge the members of the Marcia Research Group and acclaim them for the road they've journeyed in bringing us to this point. And for the record, they are Joseph Bandera, Anne Clapp, Deborah Harris, Jackie McKeague, Jenna Davis, Kate Guild, Catherine Hewitt and Paul Dvorak, who addressed us tonight, Susan Axon, Colleen Matthews and the late Dale Johns. And we thank them for their enthusiasm and energy and their commitment to what they've done to bring us to this point. Dale Johns sadly passed away before this report could be finished, but I think it's fitting to also remember that this milestone is part of Dale Johns' life work. And I recall being at the memorial for Dale, where it was acknowledged that his spark and his wit and sometimes his sharp humour brought some light into the subject matter around the Marcia table. And I think, as I remember Dale and his contribution out of the people that were here, it's fitting that now, some months on since his passing, that we've got to this point. So I commend the motion for resolution in the affirmative. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very briefly, just to congratulate Adam, ECU for partnering. Thank you very much. The team that Councillor Kelly's already mentioned, and Ryan and the officers of the city, because it's been a very cooperative approach and I think the outcome is magnificent. So I'd urge everybody to support it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Is there a speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.1, request for leave of absence. Can someone move that? Councillor Steck, Councillor Steele, all in favour? All in favour, councillors? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. I declare this meeting closed at 5:49 and we'll resume at 6 p.m. for the budget meeting. Thank you very much.